you today's days and the month which we belongs to. Of course, it actually a trending month, especially that very day, which is happens to be May Day, and we really appreciate God for this beautiful privilege God has given to us one more time. And I use this to welcome you to this edition of Bottom Line, New Cruise 92.7 FM. And I will say, Happy Celebrations Day to all the workers around the world. It's not just about the celebrations in Nigeria. Of course, we have it in some other parts of the country. We also have that also United States of America, which they've brought out a particular policy of 888 formula, eight for vacations, 8 days for them working at their different professions, and that has been that policy that has been happening till now. And we will be saying this, it's cutting across the world, and we are saying Happy Workers' Day. And of course, right here, we are influencing the world through excellent content delivery to give you credible, reliable information, strong current affairs programs on topical issues involving policymakers and experts in the fields of profession. And we don't shut you out as we use our opportunity also to reach out to you to be part of the conversation. This is what we do right here. And my name is Precious Afolabi. And of course, we have our in and analysts that have been there all the time. Every segment by segment, of course, when we move away from this paper round segments, then we go to the interview sections. And that is, before then, I will be having this very wonderful colleague with me, that is Ayo Ayedun, which is going to do the analysis with me. Then we usher him to the next segment. Hi, Ayedun.
All right, thanks for having me. Good morning to you and good morning to listeners at home.
And I'll say Happy Workers' Day to you too.
All right, thank you. Happy Workers' Day to you. We are all in it together.
I know that.
Even though we are not resting today.
We are not resting. I don't think we've ever had that, except if we have one of our colleagues, that can actually stand
in,
for us.
Yeah, it's the nature of the job.
That's the nature of the job.
Yeah.
And of course, let's just go straight up to what we have on the show today. Of course, we're going to tour rounds the paper and let's see what we have there. This from the Punch newspaper. 8 years scorecard. Workers lament hardship score. Buhari governors low on welfare. And there's also opposition's rigging claims fraudulent federal government insists. And of course, in tie to that very captivating one we have there, presidency list Buhari's achievements highlight economics landmark. And straight up to the Vanguard. May Day, it's been terrible, excruciating for workers, NLC. And of course, we can't leave the Sudan issue out here, where we have Dangote partners, federal government, air peace to resettle evacuated Nigerians. And of course, I catch this here from Vanguard. Nigeria African giant advancing backward. Straight up to Daily Post with this catchy one's 2023 presidency, PDP, LP, APC in fresh tirade, lawyers seek sanctions. Adamawa elections, I was under pressure, suspended rec. Yunusa Ari breaks silence. And on Daily Trust, bandit kills 40 in Kebbi, Zamfara. Okay, straight one to the Punch newspaper. 8 year scorecard. Workers lament hardship. Score Buhari's governors low in welfare. As the President Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired, mark his last day May in office today, Labour Union have scored the regime and state governors low, saying they pauperized workers and inflicted hardships on Nigerians. And they lamented the galloping inflations in the country, which they say had eroded the 40% pay rise recently approved by the federal government with effect from January. Last week, the government paid the 40% increase in allowance to various categories of the federal workers, but labor leaders said the pay rise had been lost to inflations, and the consumer price index reported by the National Bureau of Statistics in March 2023 indicated that Nigeria's inflation rate accelerate to a new 17 years high of 22.04%. And according to the World Bank, Nigeria has one of the highest inflation rates globally and the seventh highest in sub-Saharan Africa in 2022 when the Buhari took over in 2015. Petrol was sold at 87% per litre, but it's presently dispensed for 19 naira from 196 despite the payment of subsidies by the regime. And cooking gas price also short at 822.16 kg for 256 kg in 8 years, while electricity tariff were hiked to 68% kilowatt per hour from 27.20 kilowatts despite power outage. Of course, we are looking into this, Ayayedo. I will really say that when you're talking about the workers generally, before we look into the welfare of the worker, put it that way, if we have what I can call a matchup scale, I think the workers in Nigeria, will not give that 100% or even let's say 90% to the administration of Muhammadu Buhari so far. Of course, this one, people will be asking a lot of things because we can say that the May 1st, this May day today now, is pregnant with a lot of questions. President Muhammadu Buhari is going out, and we are expecting another administration in the same party. Now, what can we really recall to that saying that, okay, President Muhammadu Buhari has done best for Nigerians, especially the Nigerian workers, before saying bye-bye in this administration?
Well, I think being the last and, of course, the 8th celebration of May Day under President Buhari, Nigerian workers would look back, to 2015 and ask salient questions from themselves. How far have they gone? How fair has the government been to them? And in all spheres of their endeavors, financial, welfare, working conditions, a whole lot of issues, I believe the workers will be asking themselves and say, look, situate the kind of life you were living 2015 and the one which you're living now. You can see a wide difference. The only positive which the workers may refer to now is the approval of 30,000 naira minimum wage by this current administration. But of course, like the NLC, the workers are saying that, look, even that increment had been eroded by the cooking gas prices have gone really high. Diesel, petrol, cost of food, materials, a lot of goods and services are almost unaffordable by a worker which is on 30,000 naira per month. So it's a very tight one for Nigerian workers, and I believe that there's no big deal. They just need to ask themselves. But like I said, government is, like I always say, government is a continuum. This government gave us a 30,000 naira minimum wage. We hope that the incoming government would be able to jack it up a bit. Of course, the labor unions are already demanding for that because the realities of the present day really, really demand for a pay rise for all the workers. You know, 30,000 naira cannot just meet up with the daily challenges of an average worker. Not to talk of those who now live in, big cities where you have even
Yeah,
more
the
higher
cost
cost of
expenses
living.
just go
You know,
more
these
up.
are the
Yeah.
challenges. So I don't believe Nigerian workers may be entirely too happy with the current government, not because the government has not done well, but because the government has not been able to put in place
Mm.
certain mechanisms to curb rising inflation. That, for me, is the major challenge of the average Nigerian worker.
All right.
When you have to pay for your children's school fees, which the schools are also increasing, their fees. You have to transport yourself to a place. What ordinarily should be around 100
100,
naira is running to
200,
about 200,
150.
300.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are things that bit by bit, steadily they take the money off your bank account. So I don't think that Nigerian workers will score this government too high. And that's one area that the incoming government would have to look into and say, how do we begin to the rising inflation? Can we, on another hand, begin to improve the living conditions of people so that no matter how high these things are, we can afford them? But then we also need to put into consideration the fact that what is really affecting our economy is the weak naira to other currencies.
So other currencies.
And
Okay.
usually the kind of things that we expend our money on are largely imported, and we use this scarce and high forex to import some of these goods and services. Chief of them all is fuel, which we need to use this high forex to import. So even if the government is cushioning the effect by increasing salaries, we also have to go to the drawing board to find a way to deal with our foreign exchange issues. And that's one area that I believe that Tinubu should begin to shop now, for somebody who could head the CBN and bring some, meaningful and better fiscal policies to our economy, so that our naira can begin to, have some improvement as against dollars, pounds, and euros, and
All
all
the
of those
currencies
currencies.
like that.
This is the major challenge
Okay.
which we have as a country.
Okay, AY, let's look at it. It's been a philosophy in Nigeria. Let me say Nigeria, that whatever goes up will never come down.
Yeah.
It has been that way. But do you see, this question is tightens into two. One, can Nigerian workers ever be satisfied? And two, what has been the policy, or what do you feel, what could be the policy that the federal government could actually, put in this incoming administration, to satisfy the Nigerian workers?
Two. First is, can we, which the labor unions are already demanding for, begin to refine a crude oil within the shores of Nigeria? If we can achieve that, in 1,000-fold ways, we would have lessened how much forex we push externally to import fuel. And number two is the fact that the government has to put in place a lot of policies, to reduce unemployment. And one way, which really is the number two, is to rejig our power sector. If you improve our power sector and Nigerians can have access to several hours of power, I can tell you a lot of small and medium businesses will thrive. And by that, the government would even be able to demand for more taxes on all of these businesses. But in a case where you are grappling with erratic power supply, at the same time, you have to spend hugely to purchase fuel to run your business. I mean, you are stifling businesses beyond normal. So the policies that the incoming government should begin to look towards is, like I said, first, to ensure that we go back to local refining, so that we can reduce the way at which we push out our foreign exchange to other countries in the name of...
You're talking about local refining.
Yeah.
It's a lot. You mentioned it, local refining. Doesn't mean that, is that not really expensive? Even for the local people to, the local expert to be able to feed in, at least to be able to put this on the table, just because to help the situation of refineries.
Look, whether it's costly or not, it's something that several decades away from here, we will always look back and be happy we embarked on it. I mean, almost annually, the government budget money to rejig our moribund refineries, 4 of them. None, up till this minute, is up and running. even the modular refineries are not producing as much as we need as a nation.
Mm.
So now the government is waiting patiently for Dangote refinery to come up. But we also know that that's a private business, which is going to will not care whether or not it is convenient for Nigerians. It's into business to make money. So you cannot achieve a lot when your currency is weak, and in spite of the weakness, you have to use it to try to transmit it to higher currencies, and then use the same higher currencies to import fuel. Nigerians are going to pay for it. And as I was saying, on in power sector, can you just improve the power sector so that businesses, tailoring, welding, people who run cyber cafes, all of these businesses, we really do not have to struggle too hard to survive. These are the issues that I believe that if you put in place, even the NLC will give you ample time, enough allowance to put in place other mechanisms to redefine and to rejig our economy. But if you think you want to continue to tax Nigerians, I was reading in the news 2 days ago, the government is now planning to increase taxes on drinks, beers, automobiles, and all of those things. This is the only way Nigerian government believes on how to get money, to tax Nigerians, even to the point of crashing. That's not how to do it. If you make life affordable to the people, if you give people dividends of what they are paying tax for, I can tell you people would be willing to pay taxes. People would be willing to pay for electricity if they can use it and they can make money from it. So the field is open for the incoming government to look around and look for ways to satisfy the yearnings of Nigerians. And if you cannot do this, I can tell you the labor unions will continue to make demands. Nigerian workers will continue to pile so much pressure on you, and you are not going to govern in an atmosphere of peace. So all of these things, pressures, these are things that as a nation we can achieve, but we are not serious about it. Do you want, if Dangote could build a refinery from scratch, do you want to tell me that the federal government of Nigeria, which has access to getting loans from IMF, from World Banks, getting Sukuk bonds and all of those things, cannot afford to, revive a moribund refineries? These structures are there. All you need to do is to rehabilitate. But you have a single enterprise, a single individual building from scratch. So it goes to show how serious we are as a country. It goes to show how serious the government is about its priorities. Do you want to tell me that Dangote is richer than the Nigerian government? Absolutely not. But the government has failed to get its priorities right. And that's why the current government is now trying to push the remaining responsibilities to the incoming government. And I hope that the incoming government would be able to address all of these issues. But I believe that if we can embark on local refining, honestly speaking, we are going to, be happy that we made that move a few years away from here. Yeah, the money may bite hard at this point in time because the country, low-key, is broke. The money may bite too hard, but we are going to live to enjoy the dividends of having to refine our oil and not always spending forex on importing this. Now, we are not only importing fuel, we are also importing virtually everything,
that
clothing materials,
right
that we can produce here, manufacturing materials, even food stuff. We have to import all of these things. Virtually everything we have to import. And these are the challenges. Agricultural produce. How do you want to tell me that in spite of the fertile soil we have across this country, we have to import food materials? So that, like I said, it only goes to show the priority of the government. And if the incoming government is going to get its priorities correctly, I can tell you that it will be better for Nigerians.
All right. Everything, it's all about setting the priorities right. Of course, whatever is torching a particular country, let the government just to try and make that to be scores. Of course, straight up to the Vanguard newspaper, we've got a whole lot of stories today. But Vanguard newspaper, May Day, it's been terrible, excruciating for workers. NLC and ICE Nigerian Workers today joins their counterparts globally to mark International Workers' Day, commonly known as May Day. The Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) describes the last year as terrible and excruciating for workers and other Nigerians. And this came as workers in petroleum, electricity, comes from the maritime, manufacturing, and other sector, decried the present level and hopelessness across the worsening poverty, insecurity, unemployment, inflation's high cost of living, and um, frustrations in the nation. And speaking with the Vanguard on the conditions of workers in the last year, NLC General Secretary Ima Ogwaja said that the last one has been especially workers in every sector. And of course, AY, if there is, when I was reading through the story, there are some punchlines that I was holding on to when it's been described as we are facing in Nigeria now is something that is better to be described as a mystery, poverty, and hopelessness. It, that's not just very mongers for that expression.
Well, NLC is quite correct, but do you blame the government? Absolutely not. That's why we've got the NLC, the TUC. That's why they are there. They should go around the world and see how union laborers make demands from government. When was the last time that NLC went on a peaceful protest or to make certain demands from the government? These things go beyond releasing press statements, calling world press conference and all of those things. But no, 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 no. No government is going to take you serious that way. NLC and TUC largely what they have done over the years is let, sister, or let me say daughter unions under them just embark on strike. Nobody is giving them any backup. Recently, aviation unions embarked on strike for about 2 days. Where was that? We know all of these things. But, or how do Nigerian work NLC and TUC and affiliate unions are simply, holding back and merely releasing press statements? No. In France, up till this moment, they are still demanding, protesting almost every now and then. Why? Because the government increased retirement age from 62 to 64, just 2 years. And I can tell you, the labor unions have shut down virtually every sector in that country. Same thing is going on in Israel, where you have the government or the citizens are against the government because of some certain judicial policies. Go to the UK, a lot of strikes have been going on. Why? Because of rising inflation. But in Nigeria, our own labor unions, all they do is release press statements. So it's not enough to remind us that Nigerian workers are going through excruciating pain. We know, because we are also in the system. We are workers, we know what it is. So don't remind us, don't remind the workers what they are going through. What you need to do is to take their case, take their agitation to government doorstep. But if we have not done that, you have no right to continue to remind anybody. The government is aware of what you are saying, the hopelessness, the misery, the poverty, the high cost of living, inflation. The government knows. But if you don't go to the government to demand for better deals for your members, for workers, then you rather keep quiet and stop disturbing Nigerians with press statement and press conference.
Okay, let's look at it. Seems like to all the labor unions and other union sisters and so on and so forth, I've seen protest as a main voice that the government could actually understand. Now, looking into that, you're going to tally with this. This May celebration, Workers' Celebration Day today, what's worth to be celebrated?
Well, I don't know. There's nothing to celebrate. Do we want to celebrate the terrible working conditions that workers have to face virtually in every sector? From the health sector to aviation to teaching to lecturing, even broadcasting here. Do we need to continue to remind the world how bad it is, how we have to struggle as a business to survive, where you have power? We've not had power in almost 48 hours now, 800 naira per liter.
Which equals to us shutting down sometimes. Just to be
so
able to
we know all of these. There's nothing really to celebrate, honestly speaking. And I tell you, protest is the only way, is the only language
that the
government understands, not just in Nigeria, anywhere in the world. Even the most advanced nations, nobody is going to take you seriously when you just talk and just sit in your room or in your offices and make certain demands. Nobody is going to take you seriously. You have to hit the streets. You're not meant to destroy things. You are not meant to, embark on free for all protest. But just what stops their gates and say, look, this is our demands. Lawmakers, you are representing different constituencies across the country, and our members are your constituents. How can you take our cases if the president will not listen to us? Can lawmakers take our case to the president? It's not all about destroying things and all of those things. You can simply embark on, a walk around and say, this is what we are demanding for.
Peacefully and
Peacefully
constantly.
and constantly. This is what is going on around the world. In France, nobody is killing anybody, nobody is destroying anything. Just to let the government know that things are not easy. And the only way for you workers to work and give back to the system as much as you should is when the government also plays its part by giving donations. If all of these are not there, how do you expect the workers to give back to the system as much as they should do? So really, Precious, it's a tough time to celebrate May Day, not a good time for a lot of Nigerian workers in a system where an average worker is waiting for a public holiday. They are resuming tomorrow morning because it's absolutely horrific. When thinking of how to pay your children's school fees, how to feed them at home, how to clothe them, how to give to them.
Resuming.
The schools are resuming
tomorrow.
And you have to pay loans, car loans, housing loans, and all of these things. So it's really nothing to celebrate. Where we are not like Lagos State, where the governor can wake up one day and say, okay, I'm adding some 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira to the pay of workers. We can even the 30,000 minimum wage, the consequential adjustments have not been made on people on higher cadres. So these are the issues we have on ground. And so it's a tough time to be a Nigerian worker, really. But of course, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. But this current government really has nothing to celebrate in what we experience now, other than the fact that they gave to us 30,000 naira minimum wage, which cannot readily cater for what we have at hand.
All right. Of course, it's still New Cruise 92.7 FM, bottom line. We're still touring around the paper rounds for what we have. Still on Guardian newspaper, and we have this. We cannot but just pick the story about the Sudan saga. Definitely, we have in this Dangote partners, federal government air peace to resettle evacuated Nigerians. And the Board of Trustees of the Aliko Dangote Foundation's ADF has resolved to be fully involved in the evacuations and resettling of thousands of Nigerians stranded in Sudan. MD CEO of Aliko Dangote, Zaura Yusufu, had been in contact with the management of Air Peace and the federal government to indicate the foundation's readiness to support for the stranded Nigerians. Of course, he said the foundations will collaborate with federal government and have seamless transportations of the stranded Nigerians, and more importantly, provide logistics and succor to the evacuees to make the settlements more comfortable when they return to Nigeria. And of course, if you are to talk about Aliko Dangote's foundation has been there all the way. When you talk about the times of the time of the federal, the air peace, the time of the logistics being supplied with the efforts during 2015, where they supported the Ebola containment effort, their hand also to support the federal government in the times of the IDPs, provisions of IDPs of the COVID-19, where we have now, this is a major issue. This is what we can call an unrest situation for Nigerians at diaspora during the evacuations. Of course, can't you give it up to